Yo, what's up guys, my name is Kara Esse and I'm back again with another sample. And for this sample that I'm about to break down, it was inspired by the recent songs that joeybadass has dropped, as well as the new single that Cozz also dropped. And it's more in the 70's type of vibe. And for this sample, I started with the electric piano from Lounge Lizard, and the name of the preset is Tiny Room. And I only just used 2 chords which I repeated, and then at the end I added a variation. And the chords that I used for this sample is I used the E major 9 sharp 11. I also added a F sharp major 11 chord, and this is how it sounds like. So because it's a soulful sample that I'm breaking down, the whole vibe, I wanted it to have that accent at the end to make it seem like a band was playing the sample. And after that I added a choir vox from Xenology, and the name of the preset is ums and ahs pause, and together with the electric piano, this is how it sounds like. So this choir is just providing the ambience for the sample. I then added a bell also from Xenology. The preset name of this bell is Bell 8, and it sounds like this. And so the bell is just accenting the chord progression of the piano for this first half of the sample. I then added a solo violin from Sonatina Orchestra, which will provide the string part for the sample, and it sounds like this. And for the strings that I used in the sample, I added automation so that they can sound as if they are rising towards the end to set the mood for the next section of the sample, which I'm not there yet, but we'll get there. I then added a violin from Sinful Orchestra. I also added a 102 violin from Xenology, and together these 2 violins sound like this. And so what helped me come up with the melody for the strings is I was listening to a lot of soul samples, and if you listen to soul samples a lot, you actually start to realize that the strings are actually playing a melody, obviously, but they're actually telling a story. So they're rising and coming all the way down. So that's what I wanted to capture when making this sample. Therefore, I also added a solo horn from Sonatina Orchestra, because in this era of the 70's music, they were using horn instruments and brass instruments, so it made sense for me to add that in the sample. And the solo horn from Sonatina Orchestra sounds like this. So the horn is just adding a layer, accenting the melody which was played by the strings. I then added a bass from modo bass, and the name of this bass is called 60's P bass, and it sounds like this. So also with the bass towards the end, I was just adding that boo to have that impact at the end. And the last instrument I used for the A section of the sample is that I added a pad from Expand. The name of this pad is called Massive Pad. I also added a solo violin tremolo from, I think from Sonatina Orchestra if I'm not mistaken. And together this sounds like this. So this is just adding a drone note in the string section so that the strings feel a little bit fuller instead of sounding like there's some instruments missing. So that's why I added that part. And then for the second section, I started by adding a different tone of bass. By that I mean a different preset. And this time I used a rig and bass, also from modo bass, and it's playing the same pattern, but just that it's a different preset, and it sounds like this. So I kinda lied, it does have certain notes that are not in the original bass. So I just added that contrast so that the second section is not too similar to the first section, but at the same time you can differentiate that the sample is still the same. It's not like completely changed into a brand new sample. And then after that I added another different type of electric piano from Lounge Lizard. Now the preset I'm using is called Tine at 9, and it sounds like this. I then decided to accent the chords with a sitar this time, also from Xenology, and it sounds like this. And for this section I'm introducing my vocals, where I added 5 layers of vocals, and these vocals sound like this. And so since I cannot really sing, I just added accents and the backgrounds with the vocals. I'm not singing any words. I try not to sing a lot of words in my samples because I know that I cannot sing, but I cannot help myself sometimes. And then I added a piano from Roland JV. The name of the preset is 128 voice piano, and it sounds like this. So with this piano, it's just playing the same chord progression, but the only difference now is I think I just took one note from the chord progression and I was playing it over and over so that it can give this realism to the sample, to make it sound as if there's someone in a real band playing the piano. That was my thought process when I was making this part. I then decided to add a tremolo guitar from the stock plugins from FL Studio, and I think the name of this preset is Stretch Trem, and it sounds like this. And so I added effects heavily to it so that it doesn't sound like the boring stock guitar plugins which sound very plasticky. And so since I don't have the real guitar instrument, so I just decided to add that. I then added a guitar effect which sounds like this. And so I just wanted a transition type of sound, that's why I added that. And for the last section of the sample, I carried on layering vocals again, and so I added 5 more layers again, which is now singing a different pattern, and this is how it sounds like. So for this section I was singing a different melody, as well as I added harmonies, and I then added a solo violin also from Sonatina Orchestra to add to the layers of the vocal, and it sounds like this. So as you can tell from that sound, it's copying the exact melody which I was singing, and I also layered it with a alto flute from Sonatina Orchestra, as well as a trumpet from Xenology, and these 3 instruments now sound like this. And that's the last section for this sample, and the outro just ends with the same electric piano that I broke down for the second section of the sample. And with that said, let me show you the effects that I used for the sample. So for the turned room, I just took care of the low end with the built-in EQ from FL Studio. And for the massive pad, I added a Valhalla vintage verb to add space to it. And it's not just the massive pad, also the solo strings, also from X-Band, solo violin I think. And for the solo violin from Sonatina Orchestra, I added a CLA to a stereo from Waves. So with this compressor, most of my string instruments are going to this one particular channel, and I was just gluing the instruments with this compressor so that they perform like a band, if I can put it in simple terms. And then with the 60s P bass, I also added a SSL comp stereo from Waves. So with this compressor, I just wanted to bring the peaks up a little bit for the bass, since I felt like the transients were very slow and low in terms of volume, so I wanted to bring them up a little bit. And then for the sitar, I added a Valhalla delay to add space, as well as a chorus to make it a little bit wider. And then with the EQ, I think it's for the 128 piano from Roland JV. I just added an EQ to shape the sound. And for my vocals, my chain was I added an EQ from Pro Q3 from Fab Filter, just to shape the vocals and take care of the low end. I also added a CLA2A stereo from Waves, which is a compressor where I was just making the vocals consistent in the sample. I then added a RVox stereo just to actually limit the vocals to be a little bit louder, since I recorded them very softly. I then added a fruity send so that I can send this sample to another channel, where I added an outer space, which is a reverb plugin to provide space to the sample. I then also added a Valhalla vintage verb as well to further provide that ambience to bring the vocal a little bit closer to the front. I then added an EQ to shape the reverb so that it's not too muddy and all over the place. And for the master channel, I added an SSL comp stereo again to glue the whole entire sample this time. I then added an RC20 retro color to add a little bit of distortion. Basically, I just wanted to add saturation to further the frequencies a little bit and to bring more color to the sample so that it fits the vintage vibe. I then added a Fruity Soft clipper just to clip the peak so that when it comes to the limiting part, the limiter is not working so much. I then sent it to a Fruity Balance to add volume. I then sent it to the Limiter 6 plugin, where I was just clipping the peaks and also making it a bit louder for playback. And with that said, let me play you the final sample. And the final sample sounds like this. And so that's the final sample. I hope you enjoyed the sample and you learned how to make your own 70s soul samples. And with that said, thank you very much for watching my video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video if you found it useful. Also check out my sample pack, Food for the Soul Volume 2. The link is in the description for the sample pack, as well as my new EP. And again, with that said, I'll see you 2 weeks from now. Thank you very much for watching.